Hey guys, so I just tried to do the Instagram live Q&A, and unfortunately the Wi-Fi is just not letting it happen right now. So what I'm going to do is basically I asked for you guys to submit questions, and I thought maybe I would get 5 or 10 questions. I ended up getting 47 questions, a lot of them the same questions asked by multiple people, but I feel like I can't just leave them hanging now. So what I'm going to do is basically I wrote them all down and I tried to organize them kind of by category because got a lot of different categories of questions. And I'm just going to go through and answer them the best that I can in one video like this. And then I'll put this up on YouTube, maybe try and cut it up to put it on Instagram too. So first of all, thank you to everyone who tuned in and tried to work with the technical difficulties. It was a little bit frustrating, at least for me, but probably for you too. And then also thank you so much to everyone who submitted questions. I'm a little bit overwhelmed even with how many there were, but in the best way. So yeah. I'm going to kick it off with questions about traveling because I feel like that makes the most sense, and everything will hopefully kind of tie together and get answered throughout this video. So, yeah, the first question I'm going to answer is, why are you traveling? And really I don't have like a succinct answer for this one, but it's one that I got a lot of, is the why. And I guess what it really comes down to is it's just something I've always wanted to do. In college, I switched my major freshman year, and I remember telling my parents that, and then just telling them, I don't even want to switch majors really, I just want to travel. And I promised my mom that I would at least graduate before I just took off into the world. Hi, Mom. And I'm really appreciative of her for making me stick to that. But I did start kind of traveling in college. My first solo trip was to Kenya when I was 20. It was my summer break. And I guess after that, I don't know, it was such an amazing, intense, scary sometimes, but wonderful most of the time, all of the time. Experience, and I got bitten by the travel bug and kind of never looked back after that. So every break I had, every chance I got to travel, I took it. And when I graduated in 2015, I bought my first one-way ticket, and 8 days after graduation, I was on a one-way plane to Panama. And so yeah, long story long on the why of traveling, and I'll kind of tie in the why Peru here too, is I just had always wanted to do it, and I did this one-way ticket thing in 2015, so 3 years ago now. I made it almost an entire year, and towards the end of that year, I was starting to feel sick, a lot of stomach issues, which I'll delve into later as well, and I was kind of running out of money, wasn't really sure, was kind of questioning things, and I had a job offer, so I ended up coming back home, cutting my trip a little bit shorter than I planned, and yeah, I left off in Peru. So I had made my way through Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Ecuador, Peru, and so for another question that I've been getting a lot is, why did you start this trip in Peru? And that's part of the answer right there, is that it's kind of just a picking up where I left off situation. I didn't feel like I was necessarily done in Peru. That was one side of it, and then the other side of it is the fruit. I have been on this path of healing for about a year now, which again I'll go into more a little bit later. But it led me to a lifestyle of 3 months ago when I left for this trip. I was high raw vegan, so mostly eating raw foods, but some cooked foods. No meat, no dairy, no eggs, no animal products at all. Gluten-free, sugar-free, except for fruit sugar because fruit sugar is the best. Soy-free, corn-free, all of these different frees, and starting to eat a lot more raw foods. So that was sort of the draw to Peru, as I was on this high raw lifestyle, starting to eat more fruit, and I knew from being there before that there was this like abundance of fruit there. So that was one side of it. Sorry, I had to cut out for a second. My roommate just got back.
Okay.
So, where did I leave off? With why Peru? I think I sort of tied it up there. So, the next question was why the big change from Peru to Bali. And I think the easiest answer there is that Peru was great in a lot of ways, but it didn't have all of the aspects that I was looking for to continue this healing journey that I'm on. The fruit was abundant, it was amazing, but I didn't find like a group of people who understood what I was doing. I was kind of having trouble finding a yoga practice, which is really integral for me for my healing. I was finding a lot more of your typical backpacker kind of party vibes, which was what I was looking for when I traveled originally, but this time around, not quite what I was going for. And so it was maybe about a month into our time in Peru, and Adam, who you just met, we were talking about finding a place that had more of these kind of qualities that we were looking for. We're both vegan, we're both very much looking to better ourselves right now, and we had a couple friends in Peru, shout out to Sam and Hervey, who told us about Bali. And I just remember sitting and talking to Sam at one point, and he was like, you gotta check it out, like it's got everything that you're looking for, especially the vegan thing. And so we started doing some research, we started looking into it, and kind of after that point, it felt like we were just constantly saying, like, yeah, let's manifest Bali. Like, let's go to Bali. We should do that one day. We should do that at some point. And after a couple weeks of that, we were just like, let's stop talking about it and book the tickets. And so we did. And we've been in Bali for about a week and a half now, and I would say so far it's pretty much proven to be exactly what we were hoping that it would be. So that's sort of the why for the big change across the world. And then following that, another huge question that I've been getting from people is how long, A, we're going to be in Bali, and B, like how long am I traveling in general? And I don't have an answer for either of those questions. As for how long for traveling, I, at this point, really feel like it's just going to be my lifestyle. I don't have any plans to go back to the States, and I think if I were to kind of settle somewhere, it would be more somewhere like here, or somewhere that, you know, has all of these things that I'm looking for. And then how long in Bali? Another good question that I don't have an answer to. Until it doesn't feel good, or until I want some sort of other change, or, you know, something else calls me to move, then I will. For now, I have a 30-day visa that's extendable to 60 days, so I'll be extending that in a couple weeks. So 2 months, definitely, and then after that, who knows? I could see myself staying here a lot longer, but I'm not going to give a hard answer on that one. So, yeah, just continuing to go down the list. Another question that I get, not just for this Q&A, but just in general all the time, is how? You know, how do you travel How do you work and travel? How do you get started? Like I want to do what you're doing. How do I do it? Or how do I live that life or leave this life that I'm living now? And I think the easiest answer, obviously, is just do it. Just buy a ticket and go do it. Because once you start to realize how much easier it is than you ever thought it was. I know a lot of people watching this are in different countries and from all different places, but I think the majority of my followers and definitely my family and friends are from the States. And growing up in the States, we're not told to travel. We're told to go on vacation sometimes. But as far as traveling as a lifestyle or traveling in a way that's not just a vacation, it's kind of made out to be a scary thing, especially solo travel or anything that's just out of the norm. And so that's my biggest advice there is just do it. Like, just try. Even if it's not, you don't have to go all in like I did. You don't have to buy a one-way ticket. But buy a ticket, go somewhere for a few weeks, go somewhere for a month or for a few months, and just see for yourself how easy it actually is to get going. But then that being said, I know a lot of people, your other question is, how do you afford it? How do you pay for it? What do you do for work? So for me right now, I'm very fortunate in that I have a full-time job that I'm able to work remotely. So basically, I work on my computer, and I kind of do the, not fully 9 to 5, but I work multiple hours every day just from here. So instead of my apartment in Atlanta, where I was working before, it's a hostel in Peru or a villa in Bali. So obviously, if you are able to find a job where you can work remotely, that's going to be the easiest way to fund your travels and to feel like you're able to afford this lifestyle. But I also know that that's not the most practical solution for everyone. I was sort of, the stars aligned to allow me to have this job. But so for that, my advice would be to do it more the way I did the first time around when I did my one-way trip in South America. I left with about $5,000 in the bank. So I worked and I saved up, and I knew that was, my goal. And I made enough for the ticket. I bought that ticket, and then I used a site called Workaway. So that is my number one suggestion for anyone who's looking to travel and you don't have a huge budget for traveling, is find work exchanges. I was able to go an entire year on $5,000, and I left still having a couple $1,000s in the bank. So it's more than doable. You're going to have to exchange a little bit of your time and effort, but it's so worth it. I stayed in a boutique resort in Panama on a private island, and I used my skills that I have. So I'm an artist. I painted murals, but you don't even have to have special skills. You can work reception at a hotel or a hostel. You can serve at a restaurant. You can work on farms. There are hundreds of thousands of opportunities on Workaway. So check that out, workaway.info. And it's really, that's hands down where I would tell people to start, is try and find some sort of work exchange. You'll get anything from a free room to room and board, 3 meals a day. The options are kind of endless there. So that's hands down number one suggestion. Check out Workaway, check out work exchanges in general, and you'll be able to go a lot longer than you think you will. So that's sort of the how, and definitely if you guys have more questions on that, let me know, and I can go further into that in a different video, but I'm going to try and make my way through the list for now. So this next part, when I started this Instagram page, it was very cannabis-centric. I was, like I said earlier, I had come back from Peru and I was sick. I was starting to have a lot of stomach issues, And so a lot of you guys are coming from that side of things, from the cannabis side of things, which also my job now is in cannabis. So I've got kind of questions all over the map. But one of the questions that I've been getting a lot from people is, have you been medicating on your travels, and how? Is it hard to find cannabis? And the answer is it really depends where you are. South America, it's pretty easy. It's accessible. It is still illegal in a lot of places. In Peru, for instance, the legalization is starting up there, but it's just starting up there. That being said, it's pretty prevalent. It was easy to find, especially if you're in like beach towns, kind of chill areas. You're gonna find it. And then in other parts of Central and South America, I always found it. Cannabis, hash. You can even find CBD in a lot of these places. So it's out there. I would just say, be careful. And then here in Bali, it's kind of 180. It exists here, definitely, but it's very, very much illegal. So much so that I don't even think I would smoke it if I came across it, just out of fear of being caught. The guy who drove me from the airport to the first place I was staying kind of told me a little bit about it too when he found out my job was in the industry, and he himself, he has been smoking since he was a kid, and he even stopped recently because it's just been so cracked down on here legally. So it depends on where you are, do your research, and if cannabis is an integral part of your life and of your healing process, then maybe you choose places where it exists in more abundance and, more comfortably in terms of legality. But that also ties into another question. A really good question I got from someone was, has traveling made you less reliant on cannabis? And I would say 100% yes. When it's harder to access, you have to do what you have to do in terms of, just sucking it up sometimes. Maybe I medicate differently through the way that I'm eating, or through more meditation, through my yoga practice, all of these different aspects that all lead to that same healing process. And so I would say definitely that in itself, just not having access. But then also there's something in and of itself about traveling that is healing, where I think you have to adapt more naturally. There's so much happening all the time. There's so much changing. There's so many differences in culture and in food and in plants and legality and all of these things that you sort of get accustomed to adapting your lifestyle. And so I did. I've adapted, and now at this point I haven't smoked in 2 weeks or consumed cannabis of any kind in 2 weeks, and I don't feel like I need it right now, which isn't to say that there was a point where I would have been able to do this. I think when I started this account, and I was very much kind of reliant on cannabis in terms of getting off of my big pharma medication, and I was really struggling with eating a lot of different things. It would have been a lot more difficult to go this long without the cannabis. So yeah, that's where I would say too, if it is something that is a really integral part of your life or of your healing process, it doesn't mean that you can't travel. It just means you need to do a little more research. You need to choose the places where that's going to work for you. So yeah, I'll leave that one there. And moving down the list, favorite part of traveling. This is a hard question. There are so many different aspects to the travel lifestyle that are incredible and beautiful and amazing. One, for me especially, is trying new fruits and new foods in general, for everyone. everywhere you go is going to have different culture, different ways of cooking and using ingredients and all these things. And then for me, because I'm raw vegan, the fruits have been super exciting, whether it's just trying new ones or finding them really fresh and organic and straight off the tree, walking down the street and getting a coconut. And I haven't actually had a sip of regular normal water, I don't know what you would call that, spring water or just water, since I got to Bali, actually. The only water that I've been consuming is coconut water, and then the hydration that I get from fruits. I eat mostly fruit. I'm fruit-based at this point, which I'll continue to touch on later. But I get most of my hydration through the fruit, and then the rest of it through just drinking coconuts. So for me, that has been a really, really amazing part of this travel experience. But then traveling in general, I would say just learning. Like, learning is the best part of traveling, whether it's learning about different cultures, learning about different foods, or, I don't know, even, I think, kind of the thing that I struggle with the most is also my favorite thing, is that the consistent change. You're constantly having to problem solve and adapt and deal with feeling uncomfortable or fearful about things, and then, growing through those things and learning through those things. I think that's probably my favorite part, is that your life becomes just this continuous growth all the time from everything that you're doing. So I would say, yeah, that's got to be my favorite part. And then, just looking at my list of questions here, the rest of them, interestingly, are mostly about veganism and food and kind of the things that I've been posting in terms of my personal diet and lifestyle. So I'll get started on those. One that's come up multiple times is it difficult to stay vegan or to find vegan and gluten-free food while you're traveling? Tough question. Again, going to depend on where you are. In Peru, it was difficult sometimes. In smaller towns or smaller cities, there are sometimes like 2 or 3 vegan spots. Some places that have vegan options. There's a lot of vegetarian food, but they're just sort of on the cusp of veganism right now. It's definitely a movement that's making its way there, but it's sort of like the cannabis. Like, it's just kind of starting, so you can just see the beginnings of it. One really good tip for traveling and having a vegan or gluten-free or vegetarian or any sort of diet that's different is to use the internet. Use the internet, use Instagram, use Happy Cow. Happy Cow is a great app. Use that a lot in Peru. Just you do need to do a little bit more research. And then, that being said, it's difficult in that way, but it's not difficult in the way that it's abundant in fruits and vegetables. So if you kind of take a step back from the mindset of, I have to find restaurants that will accommodate me, it will make it a lot easier for you to stick to that lifestyle. I did have one question from someone who was particularly worried about the gluten-free because your partner has celiac. And for that, I would say, again, it's going to depend on where you are. Peru, it was difficult, but then somewhere like Bali, you've got a lot of restaurants that really understand different lifestyles, food lifestyles, and different allergens. There's more options here in that sense. So, yeah, do research, find places that are accommodating to what you need in your life. Bali is incredible for staying vegan staying gluten-free, sugar-free even. Um, I've seen, I can't even tell you how many vegan restaurants, but then even the restaurants here that aren't vegan, they all have vegan options. A lot of the menus are clearly marked with what's vegan, what's not vegan, what's gluten-free. And if you were to specify, especially because this particular person asked about being nervous about cross-contamination, because obviously if you're celiac, you can't even come in contact with gluten. And here, like, you'll find a lot of places, I think, where if you express that concern, they would be really accommodating to that. So it really depends on where you are, but it doesn't mean that you can't travel. I don't really think there's anything that can limit you from traveling in that sense. It's just some things take a little bit more work, a little bit more research, maybe a little bit more of your energy to figure out, but very doable. Another question I got is, how do you blend your food and prepare your food? Someone was asking, do you have to buy all of your juices and smoothies in restaurants, or do you ever make them yourself? Both. Answer there is both. It depends on the accommodation that I'm staying in. So in Peru, I made it a point to stay in places that either had a kitchen that I could use, or I made a really good friend there who let me stay with him for a while and was able to use his kitchen. But because I knew that going out to eat in Peru was more difficult for me, especially as a raw vegan, because you can find some good vegan options in Peru with a little bit of research and effort, but for staying raw, I was finding it really difficult. So I did make it a point to always have a kitchen and a blender. I actually bought a blender in Peru and some kitchen supplies just to make sure that I could always keep up with the raw veganism and the fruit and all of that. So it's going to depend on where you are. Here, my first week and a half was staying in homestays, and I did not have a kitchen to use. So I was buying all of my juices and smoothies out. Very affordable here, so I would almost say it's kind of the same cost of making your own or eating out here. But now we're in this villa, and so this is an Airbnb villa, and one of the things that I specifically looked for when we were searching through all the different options on Airbnb was to have a kitchen. So definitely for me, I do make that a priority to have a space where I can prepare my own food. Staying fruit-based can be difficult even in a place like this where there's a lot of raw vegan food, but not necessarily as fine-tuned to fruitarianism as I would need it to be. So that's something that I kind of prioritize. So moving on to, why did you choose to go vegan, and then why did you choose to go raw vegan? Really good question. My answer is going to be different from some vegans. Like Adam, for instance, he did choose to go vegan. I didn't really choose. I didn't really have a choice. As I kind of mentioned before, I was really sick when I came back from Peru, and I ended up getting off of my big pharma medication. I was on anti-anxiety and antidepressants, and I kind of thought they might have been what was making me sick, and I also just didn't want them in my body anymore. So I went through this weaning off process over the course of 4 months, and that kicked me into being even sicker, and I was at this really low point in my life where I was waking up every morning, throwing up, going to the hospital, having to get different shots to stop throwing up, and so I don't know, I was very fortunate, and my mom is like the most supportive, amazing human in the whole world, and she had me move back home with her, and she took me from doctor to doctor and to the ER every time I needed to go, and she even learned how to give me shots at one point so that I didn't have to keep going to the ER. And long story short, we were going doctor to doctor to doctor, and every single one was telling me I was fine, which I obviously wasn't fine. I was throwing up every single day. That's not fine. But they were telling me there's nothing wrong with you. You know, it's in your head. It's probably just the anxiety. Maybe you should get back on the medication. Stop smoking weed. Like, I can't tell you how many different answers like that I got, but never anything that was actually productive or helpful. And so it was months and months and months of just feeling defeated on getting better, you know? Like, I felt like I was just not going to get better. And it wasn't until I went to a doctor who practiced integrative medicine, or had a more integrative approach, and she's not a naturopath, but does believe in natural medicine and in alternative methods of healing. And she was the first person who said to me, have you thought about changing your diet? And it seems like such an obvious thing now looking back, but it's amazing how many doctors I went to and never got that suggestion, not once. And so with her, I did an elimination diet, so I cut out dairy, gluten, soy, sugar, corn, and I think we just started on, it was cooked vegetables at the time. It was cooked mono meals of vegetables, so just one cooked vegetable at a time, which I would actually do different now, like being raw especially, and learning what I've learned. But it worked, is the moral of the story, is that 4 days into that, I stopped throwing up. After throwing up every single day for months on end, I didn't throw up. And then I kept doing it, and the next day I didn't throw up. And another day went by, and I didn't throw up. And so, for me, staying on this sort of vegan path overnight was very easy for me because I was scared. Like, I finally felt good again. Or not so much good, but better, so much better, not throwing up, that there was just no way I was going to add those things back in. And at that time, my doctor was telling me, you should still eat lean proteins, you should still eat a little bit of meat, get protein, all these things, but at that point, I started doing my own research, and I decided I just wanted to be completely plant-based because it felt good, it was working, and the more research I was doing about it, I was understanding why it was working. It's so optimal for your body and for the planet and for everything. It made so much sense to me. So for me, that was kind of why I chose to go vegan. It was less of a choice, although it was, now that I'm kind of thinking about it, it was my choice. I did decide that was the route that I wanted to go. And then as for why I chose to go raw vegan, kind of the same thing. Intuitively and through doing research, I just kept fine-tuning, adding a few things back in and then cutting them out, and seeing how I felt eating more cooked food, more raw food. Can I add in some gluten here and there, or is that going to be bad? Can I try sugar? Like, all of these different things. And for me, it was just finding that my body, and particularly my stomach, feel the best on raw foods. And now, even more so, I've sort of fine-tuned to fruit-based. My body feels the best when I'm eating mostly fruit. It's the easiest thing for your body to digest. It is the most optimal food for the human body, and I do truly believe that. Even if you're not vegan, I really, really, really believe that if you just start incorporating more fruit into your life, you will be a healthier, happier human. And for me, it was just a matter of actually practicing that and seeing that it was working. And it's been easy to stick with in a lot of ways because of what I was saying before. I have a little bit of fear of going back. But also every time I have sort of tried to shift back, there have been enough signs in my body that this is what's right for me. So that's kind of how I've gotten to this point in my diet and my lifestyle. Another question on the list, and this one I just feel like is a really common question in general, is isn't it expensive to be vegan? Isn't it expensive to eat organic produce? Yes and no. It can be really expensive to be vegan, especially if you're just starting out, if you're buying a lot of those like processed vegan foods, the substitutes for what you were eating before, but in vegan form. There are definitely some pricey vegan restaurants in the States because it's kind of trendy right now and things like that. But there are so many ways to stay vegan on a budget. If you stick to Whole Foods, not the store, but Whole Foods in terms of, yeah, the Whole Foods is a little bit expensive, the store. But if you're sticking to just buying produce, right, like, whole plants, fruits and vegetables, maybe rice and quinoa, and just getting those like staples of your whole food plant-based diet, it's not expensive. Definitely organic produce is going to be a little bit more expensive, but this is something Adam and I both like to say a lot, is it's investing in yourself. You're investing in your health. And so, yeah, maybe you spend a little bit more on what you're eating right now, but what are you saving in the future? What are you saving on doctor's visits? What are you saving on... I think a lot of people, when you start to eat in a way that's more healthy, you start realizing that a lot of your other habits are not so healthy. And so maybe you cut back on buying alcohol. Maybe you stop smoking cigarettes. Maybe you take that money and you put it towards feeding yourself with living foods and plants. So I think if you want to do it, the whole, like, it's too expensive thing, that's an excuse. You can make that excuse, but you can also find a way to make it work. I have a friend, Emma, who did this really cool thing for an entire month where she ate on $3 a day, all vegan food, and she ate so well, like beautiful meals. There are plenty of ways to do it, and I think I would like to do more videos in the future, so if you have more questions on that, let me know, and I'll try and dig a little bit deeper there. But moving on to, do you have any tips for going vegan? Yeah, I think my best tips are kind of the same as the traveling, right? Like, just do it. Just start doing it. Even if it, for some people it's got to be a little bit more gradual. Maybe you can't do it right away, but just start. Just start cutting things out, start cutting things back, start adding in more fruits, more vegetables. I think a really good tip that a lot of people don't know because of the way that we're conditioned around food in the States is eat more fruit. Eat fruit all the time. Eat as much fruit as you want. Obviously, like, I think coming from me, people are like, yeah, but like, you're obsessed with fruit, so of course you're going to say that. But honestly, the reason I am is because of what I've learned about it. It is something that I think growing up, like, we're kind of taught, like, oh, that's like a dessert, it's so much sugar, it's all carbs. We have like a fruit fear is a thing that I've seen around on the internet, this fruit fear in the States. And it's so true. People think it's not healthy to eat fruit, which is just absurd. It grows to the end of its life on a tree or, on a bush or however it's growing in the ground. And at the end of its life cycle, it drops and it's in its completely ripened form and it's ready for you to eat it. It's literally something that is made for you to eat. And then people are telling you that it's bad for you. But it's not. Like, everything about fruit is good for you. And the majority of fruits, especially if you're sticking to, like, the juicier fruits, melons, mangoes, berries, apples. There's so many different fruits out there, too. But those juicy fruits, it's mostly fiber and water. So I think my number one tip for going vegan and staying vegan and trying to, replace some of what you're eating right now with something else would be just eat more fruit. like anytime you want it, eat it. Eat as much of it as you want. That's going to help a lot. And then the other tip that I would have is start doing some research. Like really start learning more about all of the different aspects of veganism, because that's one thing for me too that I think I went vegan originally 100% for my health. I sort of had an ethical thing, but really, if I'm being honest, it was mostly for my health. It was mostly for me. And then once I started doing it and started learning more about it, you realize that like there's so many more reasons to be vegan than not to be. Whether it's the environment or ethics or your health, I mean, you can approach it from so many different angles that I think the more you can learn about all of those different angles, the easier it is to stick to it. Because you stop seeing animal products as food. You start seeing plants as life. You start seeing all of the different reasons why this is a really amazing lifestyle to have. And so, yeah, I think those would be my main tips. And find some people who inspire you. Find, different people on YouTube or Instagram or bloggers who are vegan and see what they have to say about it, because that helped me a lot too, to develop my own perspective on it. Next question is, do you follow a strict diet? Which I'm going to kind of tie into the next one, which is, I've seen you say fruitarian a lot. What is that? And do you only eat fruit? So this is kind of a tough question for me because I'm really in the process of developing my diet and my lifestyle, and I'm kind of experimenting and still figuring out exactly what feels best for me. So do I follow a strict diet? I think for a lot of people the answer would be yes. I only eat raw fruits and vegetables and some nuts and seeds, and that's been getting even more like, I think I'm saying fine-tuning a lot, but it's the right word for it. It's getting even more like fine-tuned in terms of finding out that I can eat some nuts and seeds and some like fattier foods, but they kind of slow me down and I have more trouble digesting them. So for me, it's sort of finding, I don't even like to call it a diet, but just a way of eating that makes me feel my best. And I'm still really finding a balance with this, so, it's a process. It's a work in process, but a work in progress, not a work in process. But as for the Fruitarianism, it's just a label, just like anything else. Fruitarian really, I think, in the like strictest sense, it would mean, that you're just eating fruits, which also includes some vegetables, like fruit vegetables, cucumber, some squashes, tomato, avocado. Those are all fruits. So it's not really just fruit in the sense that you're probably thinking. But for me, being fruitarian or kind of fruit-based is that I eat mostly fruit. My day usually goes something like, breaking my fast with liquids. So I've been kind of on a lime juice thing lately, which comes up in some future questions, but also coconut water or some sort of juicy fruit or a smoothie maybe. I've been definitely like on a papaya kick for a while, so starting my day with juicy fruits, hydration, getting the day kicked off like that, and then generally throughout the earlier hours of the day, I'll stick to just fruit. Maybe some nuts and seeds. Like lately I've been getting a lot of smoothie bowls here, and they usually have some nuts and seeds on them, so a little bit of that, but really the majority of what I'm eating throughout the day is fruits, and then really concentrating on hydration. Can't stress enough how important that is, especially if you are raw vegan. You really want to focus on the hydrating. And just in general, as a human, like, we're very dehydrated, so it's important to remember to hydrate your body and to focus on that a little bit more, even if it's not drinking water. Like, I really don't like drinking water. I never have. But if you eat more of those juicy fruits, coconut water, drink juices, then you're going to be helping your body out a lot. So that's generally how I start my day. And then later in the day, late afternoon, early evening, I usually do some vegetables. So that would be my bigger meal of the day. I usually do like one meal as you would think of it. And it's usually kind of a salad or, zucchini noodles, something like that. And then I'll incorporate some fats into that. Yeah, I think after hearing that answer, a lot of you would say, yeah, like, I have a really strict diet. But I think when you're actually living the lifestyle, it doesn't necessarily feel strict. There's so many opportunities to play with the food, to play with plants in their raw form. And especially here in Ubud, like, I'm learning a lot about just how possible it is to make raw vegan food, in every form of cooking that you knew before. You can have soup still, you can have lasagna, you can have pasta, you can have pizza, you can have burgers, you can have nachos. Like, you can have literally everything that you loved as not only a non-vegan, but then as a vegan eating cooked foods in a raw, creation. No, it's not exactly the same, but it's abundant in opportunities and in creativity too. It definitely, like, it gets me. I've never enjoyed cooking. My mom always says, like, you cook more now that you don't eat cooked foods, and it's so true. I have a much different connection to food than I had before, and I enjoy playing with my food and finding new combinations and all of these things. So that's my long answer for that one. And then the next group of questions is around fasting. Why do you say that you're breaking the fast? How often do you fast? What is intermittent fasting? I think we can all kind of group those together. So intermittent fasting is basically giving your body a window of a certain number of hours per day, per 24-hour day, that you're not putting any food into your body. It can be dry fasting or wet fasting, so drinking liquids or just not putting any, not consuming anything for a certain amount of time. So I've been sort of playing with intermittent fasting for 6 or 7 months now, and I've reached a point where I feel pretty comfortable in what I'm doing with that, and have kind of gotten into a habit. And so I do about 15 or 16 hours per 24-hour period where I'm either dry fasting or wet fasting, usually dry fasting. So I'll stop eating at 9 o'clock, and then I'll start eating again at 1 o'clock. And here I've actually sort of adjusted it, and I've been trying to stop eating a little bit earlier, so I stop eating like 7 or 8, and then I start here around somewhere between 10 and noon. I'm still sort of adjusting with the time change and, figuring things out here, even with what I'm eating and getting into a routine. But so for right now, I do probably somewhere between 13 to 16 hours of fasting a day. And what this does is basically it gives your body a break. Your body is smart. It's so smart. So if you give it the tools, it will heal you. And for me, since my trouble was really with my stomach, I have a lot of trouble with digestion. And for me, the days when I do intermittent fasting, I feel better. My stomach feels a lot better. I used to wake up, even after I went vegan and I stopped throwing up and I was in a lot of ways healed, I was waking up nauseous in the mornings and, still having just a lot of nausea in general, a lot of kind of anxiety around that. And when I started with the intermittent fasting, first thing that I noticed is that when I would wake up, if I stopped eating earlier in the night, so when I stopped eating at like 9 o'clock, I would wake up and I would feel really good. And then from there, it was just learning more about it and learning more about hunger, learning more about listening to your body and intuitive eating. And so for that, I also, if you are looking into intermittent fasting, I would really suggest, don't be too strict on yourself, especially in the beginning. Just because you said, I'm going to fast for 16 hours, if you're, awake in the morning and you're getting up to those 16 hours and you're at 14 hours, but you're really like emotionally stressed out about the fact that you're hungry or you haven't eaten yet or your body is telling you that it wants something, break your fast at 14 hours. Just doing any level of intermittent fasting is going to be beneficial. But what's more beneficial is listening to your body, is finding balance. Another thing that's definitely something that I had to learn over time, because I have trouble really being strict on myself and not listening to all those other aspects. You have to be just as emotionally healthy as you are physically healthy. And so if there's any resistance in what you're doing, or if you feel like you're restricting yourself, that's not healthy for you. It's just because you're physically giving your body that time. If you're stressed out, your digestion is still going to be messed up. So with intermittent fasting, that's something that I've been experimenting with and finding my balance with, and I feel like I'm at a very good place with it now. And so that's why when I say I'm breaking the fast, that's what I'm referring to, is that it's the first time in the day or the first time since the night before that I'm eating something or drinking something if it's a dry fast. That's kind of the lowdown on the fasting. And then for how often do you fast? Every day. I do the intermittent fasting every day, so I fast, again, 13 to 16 hours a day. And then in terms of like other fasting, more long-term fasts, I have not done them yet. And that's actually something that I am hoping to do while I'm here in Bali, is to do some juice fasting. I have done a couple of like 24-hour dry fasts. I've definitely done a few 36 to 40-hour wet fasts or juice fasts, but something that I would definitely like to experiment with a little bit more here, and not even really experimenting, because I think the thing about fasting is that when you learn about it, you realize it's not, it's not a bunch of people like starving themselves or just trying to just drink juice as like a challenge. It's you're giving your body the opportunity and the ability to focus on other things. The majority of the energy that your body is using up is for digestion. So if you think about it, if you're constantly eating, which most of us are, we're always eating. It's kind of in our culture. Everything is based around food. If you don't have a chance to let your stomach just empty, it's always working. And so your body and your energy always, always, always is going towards the food and towards digestion. So what happens if you take that element out for just a little while, just for the intermittent fasting, just for 14 hours or 16 hours or 10 hours even, What if you gave your body a break? what if you gave it some time? What would it do? And for me and for other people who practice fasting, it's giving your body time to heal. And you'll see that it's going to benefit you in whatever way your body needs. For me, I kind of had a lot of skin issues, especially when I transitioned to veganism and then raw veganism and got off of all this medication, and I got my IUD removed, so I had just a lot of imbalances in my body that took some time to work out, and I think fasting is one of the things that has been helping me heal the most, because it gives my body some time to focus on those things. And like I said before, your body's really smart, so it knows what to target, and it's going to target whatever needs the most healing first and then work its way through the rest of your body. So that's a reason why I would really like to practice a little bit more of fasting once I get more settled here. Next question kind of ties in is, you talk about detoxing a lot. What kind of detox are you on? And that's a good question. I'm not on a detox or following any specific protocol. A lot of people follow like very specific detox protocols. There are a number out there right now. But for me, if you are eating just fruits, and especially, if you're eating just raw foods, you're going to be detoxing. Your body digests raw foods faster and more easily than it digests cooked foods and all these other things. And so, like I was saying about the healing, your body will start healing and detoxing, and especially with different fruits kind of aid in that detox. You'll see in my stories a lot, I drink lime juice, and that's because lime has a number of benefits, but one is that it's astringent. It pulls out the bad stuff in your body. It pulls out mucus. It detoxes. It detoxes your liver. It kickstarts your GI tract. It does all these things. And so by eating these healing foods all the time, and for me, I'm eating mostly fruit all the time, my body is naturally detoxing and has been for months and months and months. It's not, I think, a kind of misconception about detoxing, because it became sort of a trend, is to do the detoxes, do that lemonade thing, with the lemon, cayenne, maple syrup. And don't get me wrong, like, that is definitely a detoxing drink. But I think the misconception about it is that you just drink that for a week and then you're detoxed. And that's not how it works. We've got so much toxicity in our body from just living, from living all the years that we've lived, and from eating the foods that we've eaten, from, the processed foods that you're buying in the store. Read the ingredients sometimes, If it's got a ton of ingredients that you can't pronounce, imagine what that is. Imagine what that could be doing for your body. And I think if you start doing your own research, you'll start to see, like, there's so much built up from years and years and years of living and eating the way that we're conditioned to, that it takes years and years and years to get it all out. And so that's why I always say, like the hashtag detox life and all of that is because it's not that I'm on a detox or, doing one thing to detox. It's that my lifestyle now is a lifestyle of detoxification. That's something that I'm just working towards consistently. So that's why I use that phrase a lot. Another good question that I got is, do you post everything that you eat? Or is there more that you're eating throughout the day that we don't see? And I'm actually going to group, these are my last 3 questions, so I'll just group them together. Another question is, do you worry that you're not eating enough? And then the last one is, do you always eat that much? And so those are kind of conflicting questions, I feel like, and that's the funny thing about raw veganism especially, is that we're constantly being questioned on not just what we're eating, but how much of it. And this sort of goes back to what I was talking about with the fruit. I think people see you eat an entire giant papaya, and they're like, that can't be that. How could that be good for you? That's so much food. All of these different things, or a giant salad, and they're like, you eat so much. And it's funny because I think it really is just, we just don't know. We don't know that much about raw foods until you start learning about it. And the thing about raw fruit and raw vegetables too is that it's a lot of water. It's fiber and it's water. And so if you were to squish all of it down, the mass of food that you're eating is really not that much. Eating an entire papaya seems like a lot of food, but A, papaya is one of the most easily digestible fruits, so it's moving through your body really quickly, and then B, it's a lot of water. So again, just back to that hydration, and so my answer to those questions is yes, I always eat that much fruit at one time, if my body tells me to. If I get halfway through the papaya and my body says, all right, that's enough for today, then I'll just eat half of the papaya. But usually I want a good amount of fruit. And I think most people in this lifestyle would agree, you kind of need to eat more in that sense. You need to eat a good amount of your fruits and vegetables, especially the really hydrating ones, because like I was saying, if you were to compact it all in, it's not really that much food. And then the question too, do you post everything you eat, or is there more that we don't see? I used to just post a little bit here and there, but I would say for the most part, especially traveling, I've been trying to post pretty much everything I eat. So if there's ever anything that I'm not posting, it's just either more fruit. There's definitely, I probably eat a little bit more fruit than I show on my page, because sometimes I just, grab a mango and eat it and don't have the thought to take a picture of it, or, don't want to post that much in the day. But I can also, there's a lot of those what I eat in a day videos out there, and I could definitely do that if that's something that you guys are interested in. But I do, in my stories, I do show the good majority of what I'm eating, if not everything that I'm eating in a day. And some of you will look at it and say, that's not enough food. And some of you will look at it and say, that's way too much food. Everyone has an opinion about it, and for you, if you're personally looking to incorporate more raw foods or go raw vegan, you gotta listen to your own body. You have to just try and see how it feels and go by that. Because everyone's different, everybody is different, every body is different. So, you gotta listen to yours, and if it's telling you that you need more food, eat more fruit. And if it's telling you, hey, one whole papaya is too much for me, break it up. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all kind of scenario. It's very much about getting in tune with your body, getting in tune with yourself, not eating emotionally, eating mindfully. I really try to practice just eating when I'm eating. I don't do other things when I'm eating. So, I have trouble because Instagram, I'm always on Instagram, and I find myself scrolling through in the middle of my meal. But especially with just eating one solid fruit, if you can just sit and eat that one fruit, you're going to be able to tell within your body, how it's sitting, how much more do you need, and when you finish, are you still hungry, or did you just mindlessly eat your way through something so quickly that you think you're still hungry? So it's all very much a learning process, and again, not one size fits all. So my advice there is feel it out for yourself, give it a try. Even if you're not vegan or raw vegan or interested in being either one of those, try it for a day. Try just eating fruits and vegetables for one day. See how it feels. Try it for 2 days. Try it for a week, and I don't know. You'll start feeling it out for yourself. So I think that was my last question on my list, and yeah, this ended up being about an hour long. So if you made it all the way to the end, thanks for sticking with me, and I hope that you got some insights from this, or found something that resonates with you through watching and through listening. And definitely, if you would like to see more of these, or you have more questions, something that I didn't cover or was confusing, or you just want to hear more about, please don't hesitate to hit me up and ask me about it. I'll either send you a message and just we can chat, or maybe I can do a part 2 of this. So I think that's going to wrap up this video. Again, thank you to everyone who tried to stick with me in the live. That is something that I would still like to do in the future, so maybe the next place I'm at has better Wi-Fi, or I'll just go to a coffee shop at some point and try and do a live stream so we can do some actual interaction with each other and you can ask me questions. But yeah, until then, thank you to everyone who submitted these questions. They really made me think too, and made me sort of question and think about why I do the things that I do. And so yeah, I really appreciate you guys, and yeah, until next time, have a good one.